Depression is often framed in medical or psychological terms: a chemical imbalance, a disorder of mood, a disruption in normal functioning. But philosophy asks a different set of questions. What does depression reveal about the human condition? What truths about life, meaning, and existence does it expose? And how might the experience of despair itself hold philosophical significance? To begin, depression is not simply sadness. Sadness is a response to something: a loss, a failure, a disappointment. Depression is more elusive. It's a grayness that seeps into perception, where the world itself feels emptied of value. It is the difference between crying over something and being unable to find a reason to cry at all. In this sense, depression is not just an emotion, it's a philosophical state. It reshapes the way we interpret existence. This isn't a new observation. The ancient Greeks connected melancholy with both genius and suffering. Aristotle once noted that many great philosophers, poets, and statesmen were melancholic, as though the act of thinking deeply about life inevitably uncovered shadows. The philosopher's mind peers into the abyss, and depression may be one way that abyss stares back. Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism, described despair as a sickness of the self. For him, despair arose when a person could not reconcile who they were with who they wished to become, or when they became alienated from God or meaning itself. Depression, in this light, is not merely a malfunction, but an existential tension, a self-conscious being crushed under the weight of its own freedom and possibility. Albert Camus sharpened this insight when he declared that the most fundamental question in philosophy is whether life is worth living. Depression makes this question tangible. When the ordinary joys of life lose their color, the question of meaning ceases to be an abstraction. It becomes the atmosphere of daily existence. To wake up while depressed is to ask, consciously or not, why continue? Camus calls this confrontation the absurd, the recognition that our hunger for meaning collides with a silent universe. The Stoics approached despair differently. Thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius believed that suffering is shaped by our judgments about the world. If we can shift perspective, we can reduce pain. To someone in depression, this can feel dismissive. Perspective is precisely what seems broken. Yet their insight reminds us of something important. Human beings have the power to reframe experience. Even if depression dulls that ability, the Stoics suggest that there exists within us a capacity to stand apart from suffering and reflect on it. But existentialists such as Sartre and Heidegger take depression as a signal, not a defect. Heidegger spoke of anxiety and despair as revealing moods. They expose the raw condition of existence that we usually conceal with routines and distractions. Depression, painful as it is, reveals the fragility and emptiness of meaning, forcing us to acknowledge that the structures we rely on, success, pleasure, even identity, are built on shifting ground. What makes this philosophical is that depression strips life to its core. When joy feels unreachable, we are pressed to ask, if nothing feels meaningful, can I create meaning anyway? If the world feels indifferent, can I still choose to affirm life? This is not an easy or romanticized battle. It is often agonizing, slow, and invisible. But it is, in its own way, a profoundly philosophical act. Depression, then, is not just an illness to be treated. It is a lens that exposes the naked truth of human existence, that meaning is fragile, that despair is possible, and that hope, if it exists, is something we construct and rebuild each day. To endure depression is to participate in one of the oldest struggles of philosophy: the tension between despair and resilience, between nothingness and significance. Philosophy cannot cure depression. It cannot replace therapy, medication, or support. But it does offer something powerful: a language, a framing, a recognition that this state of emptiness is not merely an error of the mind, but a confrontation with the deepest questions of being. Perhaps the philosophy of depression is this: to feel despair is to be fully human, to wrestle with the unbearable weight of existence. And though it offers no easy answers, it affirms that even in the depths of emptiness, the act of questioning, the refusal to give up on meaning entirely, is itself a quiet form of hope.